psychologist, and we are now live also on StreamYard. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about what happens with Black sisterhood when it goes well, right? So, those things that unite us, and then those things that divide us, okay? So, this is a very popular topic that has been requested, actually. So, again, we're going to be talking about those issues that unite us and those issues that divide us. So, issues like skin color, hair texture, physical features, perceived social status, all these different things we're going to be talking about that, right? Because it's important that we talk about and acknowledge those things that bring us together, but also those things that have separated us, right? Because we can't address the issues if we don't really talk about it, okay? So, welcome to my channel, Lifting Us with Climb Consulting, Wellness Services, where I love to help support Black women leaving toxic jobs so that they can leave abundant, fulfilling lives. So, again, thank you for tuning in. I'm now going to have my panel introduce themselves, and then we're going to get right to the conversation, okay? So, Dr. Anderson, if you could just briefly introduce yourself and anything about your business.
Hi, Dr. Natoshia Anderson. I am the CEO and founder of Smart STEM. We are a STEM DEI, STEM education consultancy business. Our focus is on helping Black women stand up and stand out in their chosen STEM career pathways.
Awesome. Thank you. Stefany.
Hi, beautiful people. I'm really excited to be in this powerful space with so many beautiful women. Um, I describe myself as a healer and social justice advocate. I'm currently a doctoral student right now. I also do some consulting, specifically focusing on talent diversification and educator diversity, and thinking about how we're not only bringing Black and Brown folks into our spaces, but how we are making sure that they feel affirmed and thrived in those spaces. And I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Claire.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good all the things, because I know this is across time zones. I am Dr. Claire. I am a self-proclaimed unapologetic racial and social justice warrior, and I am also a clinical social worker. I am the CEO and founder of Dr. Claire Speaks, LLC, which is a consultancy focused at the intersection of mental health, racial and social justice, DEI, and advocacy. And I'm really happy to be here with you guys this evening.
Thank you. Samantha.
Good evening. I am Samantha Allen. I am the owner and founder of Foundations Counseling, LLC. I am also a district chair for the National Association of Social Workers. I'm also a member of the DEI committee. I would like to say that my practice aims to assist Black families with addressing any sorts of mental illness. We are also advocates. Right now, I like to say that I am focusing on helping to decolonize social work. That's a big focus of mine, and helping to change the way police are addressing crisis here in the Chicagoland area.
Awesome. Thank you. Melanie.
Hey, party people. My name is Melanie Gowdy, and I'm just so grateful and honored to again be among this great, what I call a sister cushion. So I'm always honored to share space with you all again. I am in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am a full spectrum social work community practitioner. I work primarily in health equity spaces. But I'm absolutely a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate. And the equity part tends to put me everywhere all the time. In so many places, wherever equity is needed, I always tend to answer the call. So I am very much a community practitioner working in meso and macro practice. So working with marginalized communities, marginalized populations, and absolutely working in advocacy spaces. So thank you for inviting me back. You all invited me back. Wow. So thank you. And I am looking forward to this being an absolute healing and validating space as it was last week.
Yes. Thank you, Melanie. Nzingha.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's just wonderful to hear who everybody is. That in itself is affirming. So I am Nzingha Dugas, and I am the president and CEO of the National Institute for African American Female Achievement. I've been in higher education and K through 12 education for about 25 years. Doctoral student studying Black women and abolitionist behavior and mindset. I'm an equity practitioner. I'm a sisterhood practitioner. I am about healing our people post the transatlantic slave trade. So happy to be in dialogue.
Yes. Well, first, I want to say again to all my panelists, to all my panelists, again, welcome today. To everyone listening, welcome. And I just want to ground us that we are here to support sisterhood, right? And for us to support sisterhood, we have to be honest about how we excel, right? And things that go really well, but things that are not going so well so that we can talk about it and then talk about ways that we can address these issues, right? So again, it's grounded in sisterhood. We all are here because we love sisterhood and we believe in sisterhood and we know how powerful sisterhood can be. So I want to just say that in terms of grounding that, right? I have my Spelman shirt today, right? To just ground us in sisterhood. My Spelman sisters here, also Stefany. So again, we are grounded in the greatness of sisterhood, but we have to be able to really have an honest reflection of it. And I just want to say too that, many times we might think, why does it hurt so badly when another Black woman has hurt us, right? So why do we feel that level of pain? It takes the pain to a whole nother level, right? So we're going to talk about that. Why does it hurt so much when it's another Black woman who hurts you, right? Well, we're going to start off in terms of strength, right? So again, the panel is just kind of set up. So I'll throw out a question. Whoever wants to respond is fine, okay? So just panel, what are any examples or what's the most salient example that you have in terms of positive sisterhood, positive Black sisterhood? Just tell me one example that stands out to you. Anyone?
I'm happy to start. Obviously,
Okay.
I think about, when I first stepped on Spelman's campus, I was born and raised in North Carolina, and, my high school was fairly large, and I grew up having to navigate those stereotypes of what it meant to be a Black woman, and always hearing from my family about, oh, you're too sassy, or you're showing up in this way. And so I actually stepped on Spelman's campus with a lot of negative perceptions about Black women and how Black women were supposed to show up. And it was because I had a bad perception about who I was and how
Ah,
who I was. And so stepping on that campus and allowing myself to not only just kind of heal and shed that perception, or try to work towards healing that perception that I had grown up with about trying to aspire to be a certain type of Black woman. I got on this campus and I saw that it was just filled with beautiful Black women across all different types of cultures and spectrums. And it was at that moment where I realized that we are not monolithic, and that we have a choice to choose, what type of Black women that we want to be. And collectively together, we are so powerful. And so when I got on Spelman's campus and I felt sort of those arms wrapped around me in acceptance for who I was and how I was showing up, it made me feel empowered. It made me feel enough. It made me feel connected. And it was just something that just transformed, I think, the trajectory of my life and my healing journey and how I showed up in the world. And so, while this conversation is thinking about, things that unite us and divide us, I think that experience is a testament that shows how powerful we are as a collective and how necessary we need each other in our own healing and empowerment. So,
true, true. Thank you, Stefany. Others?
Sure, I'll share. One of the most positive experience I've experienced Sisterhood was in a toxic work environment where it was a primarily white institution. There were a handful of people of color in leadership positions. And there was absolutely, systemic and institutional racism present. And I remember there was one other African-American woman that was in leadership. And from the moment we met, we kind of had this agreement that melanin is melanin. And when the ship goes down, we would not leave together, but we would support each other. And we had
Down for each other.
Yes. And we had several moments where, it was just intuitive. We did not know the context of what we were walking into, but when we walked into it, you know what it is when it's happening. And we could just look at each other and knew that there was solidarity. And I remember there was one moment in particular where, how when you speak in these situations, in these circumstances, you have to, be very mindful of your words because you can also be taken as being aggressive.
And the tone.
Yes. And Black women are not seen as assertive. We're seen as being aggressive and angry. So I was using all my social work tools to reframe and be neutral and still be assertive. And my sister, looked me in the eye across the table and said, I see that you were using these words and you were, trying to be professional. And she said, you do not have to do that. Not because, but she, in that moment, among our other peers, stood in solidarity with me and gave me permission to be my authentic self.
Yes.
And the room was quiet. It just gave me the validation. And it was the first experience for me as a professional that when there is solidarity and sisterhood, and it's seen and displayed, it's so powerful. It was powerful for me. It was powerful for her. And it showed our presence and our power and our resiliency in that space. And I will never forget that. And I will always honor that sister for giving me that in that moment.
Yes. So she had your back, right? She let you speak, right? And she really gave you permission, like to stand in your full glory, right? And that I see you and I value you. But also that sense that, sometimes as Black women, we can look at each other, we can give each other a look, and we know what that means, right? So we have a certain way of communicating that is so powerful and it transcends where you are, where you live, right? It just transcends so many different things. So that's very powerful. Thank you, Melanie. Any others?
Yeah, I'll share. So, there's so many stories of amazing Black women in my life and women of the diaspora that are just gifts from God. And so I am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and I have been for over 17 years. And so the sisterhood and bonds that I have formed through that, just absolutely incredible. I can think back to times in my earlier years when I called a big sister who lived probably 2 hours away, crying hysterically. And before, I could even say, don't come, she's like, I'm in the car, I'm coming.
Wow.
And like, it's 2 hours. She's like, I don't care. And I'm hearing the car. I'm hearing the ding ding of the seatbelt. And she's just like, I'm coming. Where are you? And just amazing and so incredibly affirming that it was, no one's going to mess with you. And if something's bothering you, I'm coming to protect you.
Yes.
And I'm still coming to make sure that I give you a hug. And I think those moments have been so incredibly frequent, not only with my journey there, and I could think I have another sister circle, and they affirm and we affirm each other every single day. And it's the celebrations are, one person may not say that they got a promotion at work or something, but somebody in the group is going to know. And what happens is they'll say, hey, I know Claire didn't tell you, but don't tell her I told you, but this happened to her, and she's dope. And clearly in the group chat. So they know that we're each seeing it, but it's just like, oh, you're not going to tell of your greatness. I'm going to tell of your greatness.
Yes.
And, every day it's like, I'm your fan. I'm standing you. You're incredible. And they're there in the really crappy moments, the really scary moments, the painful moments. It's not just for the good moments. You know, we are able to do that for each other and pray for each other, laugh with each other, cry with each other, and just celebrate each other. And so I am grateful because you said it's the look, it's there's just a knowing, and the connection is so much deeper. It's spiritual. And I'm so grateful for them.
The spiritual part. Yes, right? So knowing that somebody has your back, knowing that you guys communicate and that you're connected on a deeper level, and knowing that people are looking out for the best for you. They want the best for you. And even when you don't shine your light, they're shining the light for you, like, hey, let's celebrate her, right? And think about how often as Black women we're knocked down in so many different ways. So we need to be affirmed by our sisters, the people who look like us, the people who remind us of ourselves, because then we internalize that too in terms of our greatness, right? And I just think about this quote, I don't know where I saw it, but empowered women empower women, right? So if you are empowered, the hope is that you are empowering. Oh, oh my God, Claire. The hope is that you are empowering other women. Absolutely, absolutely. Others. Positive experiences of Black sisterhood.
So I too am in a sorority. I'm Delta Sigma Theta. And I can just recall I was getting an award. I don't even remember what the award was, but I remember having to come by myself. My husband and my kids couldn't come, so it was just sort of me there, right?
Huh?
And I remember getting, they call my name, I come up on stage, and there's like this huge roar from like the back of the room, and I see my sorority sisters all just going nuts, right?
Wow.
I didn't even know that they were there. And so with such, I literally almost started crying on the stage, because, in those moments where because I didn't have my normal support system, my husband wasn't there, my kids weren't there, to have them show up for me. And like it wasn't like they weren't my line sisters, right? We weren't even in the same chapter, of the thing. It's like they just knew that I was the Delta. So they were there. They showed up for me in a really huge, big way, just because I'm their sister. But it was one of the most incredible moments of my professional life. Yeah.
Yes. It's kind of like if one of us wins, we all win, right? So it's not a competition. It's just like I'm just happy and this helps all of us, right?
Yeah, and what's helpful about that for me is that it is actually, that moment has kind of sort of shifted my I guess lens. And it's like I can be happy for you. Like
Yes.
I don't have to know you and be in your inner circle to be happy for you, right? I
Yes.
can look at you and be like, girl, you go ahead and you do that. You be the best at
Yes.
whatever it is you're doing. I can be
Yes.
happy for you. I don't have to know you. I can
Yes.
just revel in you being you, and clapping for you behind the scenes, and that just be enough.
Yes. And clapping for that other woman doesn't take anything away from you,
At
right?
all.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, okay. So I'm going to shift a little bit, right? So we've talked about the positive examples. And again, I want to ground us in greatness. That's all I want to start off with, the positives, right? So we're shifting now in terms of examples or the most painful memory that you have in relation to sisterhood gone bad, right? So in the sense that you thought that you expected these things in terms of positive sisterhood, you expected another Black woman to have your back, and she did not, right? Or she did not praise you, she tried to put you down, right? So can you share with the audience about those experiences too? And unfortunately, I think that many of us have had the positive and the negative, right? And I just want to highlight again that the reason that I'm having this conversation is because other Black women have reached out to me and said, can we please talk about this? Okay, so that's what we're talking about it right here. Okay, we don't often talk about it openly, but I'm a very transparent person. So you say you want to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. Okay, so let's talk about some negative examples of sisterhood gone bad. What does that look like? What has happened? Anyone?
I'll go ahead and jump in here. I'm not sure. Can everyone hear me well? Is it
Yes,
coming through?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. I had a sister friend who was working closely with me and
Uh-huh.
super sharp, super smart. And so she became just part of my posse, and we would talk about challenging things that were happening at the university. And I
Mhm.
shared everything. And so, Dr. Kamani, just like you, I'm very transparent, and I shared
Yeah,
everything. And
yeah,
we built this network of sisters to support graduate students and undergraduate students. And another sister pulled me aside and she said, "I want to talk to you." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" She said, "That sister that you're leaning into, she has been talking about you." And so I confronted her about it, and it was real hard, and I was really close to tears because this had become someone who was super close to me. And pretty much she had called me out of my name, and the other sister said, "There's a jealousy there, so she wants to do what you've been doing with Black students." And I said, "But how does that turn into something that is about jealousy? We were working together."
yeah,
And they said, talk to her. And so I did talk to her, and it was very difficult. And she admitted that she did some of those things. And so she said, "Well, what do you want to do now?" And I really had to tell her, I have to take a break because I have to take care of me first. And
yeah,
took a break from the relationship. But then circle back around. And in that second iteration, we talked about what does it mean to be sisters to one another? What does it mean to build that bond? But it took me probably about 7, 8 months to actually really think about how do I retrust that person
yeah,
again. But here's the thing, you all, you can't not get back into that conversation. Even if it doesn't come back the way you want, you still have to say, okay, here are my boundaries, here's where the harm was being done, and whether we go forward or not, I need you to know that harm was being done. And so that's how I've been trying to approach things, is that here's where harm exists and how we're going to
yeah.
make sure we don't do that again.
Yes. So holding people accountable, holding our sisters accountable. I
Yes.
think I yes, yes, yes. And I think too it's important because when we find out about these things, it's devastating, right? Because you really trusted this woman. And a lot of times we trust
Yes.
certain people and we find out this person's been talking behind our back and we think, man, like I thought we were cool. Why would you do that? Right.
Right.
And I think that's part of why it hurts so badly is because I trusted you so much, right?
Right.
And why would you do that? Why would you smile in my face and go behind my back and talk about me? And then the issue of jealousy, is such an important issue. But then you also talked about relationship repair. Like
Mhm.
I'm gonna come back to you and I'm gonna talk to you about it. Like we can be cool for a moment, right? But I'm
Right.
still gonna talk to you about it because the hope is that you have learned from this experience this is not okay. And my hope
Right.
is that you don't do this to another Black woman, right?
Right. And it was in the space of leadership. So all these sisters were powerful sisters. They were deans of
Yeah,
stuff, heads of something. And I was like, you think, okay, we're moving up the professional trajectory. How do
yeah,
we how does it, how does it become like we're in like junior high? Um,
yes,
you still have to talk about that. And another sister said to me, like, talk about it with the language of love. And so that was also a blessing that I could talk to her
yeah,
about it from a perspective of love and not anger. And so,
yes.
and that helped. That really did.
Yes. Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Kamani, can I say,
Yes.
I think to piggyback off what she's saying, one of my thoughts is they have to value the relationship with another African American woman, and some of them don't. Some of them prioritize themselves, their
Yes.
careers
Yep.
over the value of a relationship with a woman. They value that over sisterhood, and I think
Yes.
that's one of the biggest problems that I've seen.
Yes. Yes.
Self-preservation. You know what I mean?
Self-preservation and competitiveness, right? And the
Absolutely.
competition in the sense of not like, oh, that person's doing well. I'm inspired by that person. It's like that person's doing well. There's only so many resources available to me, or so many promotions, or so many whatever. I got to take her down. I got to neutralize her, right? And then it becomes very much of a like a predator, almost like a predator, right? Like I got to. extinguish this threat because she's doing too much. She gonna take my stuff, right? And it's so interesting because my dissertation actually was on that, right? So my dissertation looked at social comparison jealousy between Black women and how sometimes when we fall into these internalized oppression ways of thinking in terms of racism, sexism, classism, and thinking that there's only so much available for some of us, not all of us, we get into that mind frame, right? And I know that I've had situations where we're thinking, well, we're all accomplished, like we're all smart, right? We all got certain things. Like, why are we fighting like this? It makes no sense. And like you said, Nzingha, like, aren't we grown women? Why are we acting like we're in high school? Like, what is this about? And I know that I had a Black woman say to me that she had sized me up. She had sized me up so she could see what I was good at and what I was not good at. But she had sized me up, right? So just that feeling that somebody is trying to bring you down, right, and compete with you is very painful. So
I think
yes,
I
go on.
think I can talk about that from a standpoint of being in a STEM career. So
Okay.
you guys know, I was a practicing mechanical engineer for 10 years. And I didn't see a lot of us. I didn't see a lot of us. There's still not a lot of us. But being in that space and being with another Black woman was always it almost always felt like competition. And it didn't matter if we were an electrical engineer and a mechanical engineer, it was like, okay, wait a minute, there's two Black women in the same space. And so it was set up for us to compete. Because
Wow.
there could only be one.
Mm.
And it was only until I don't know. I just feel like the latter half of my career, it was just like there was this switch that happened in my mind that says, I am not competing with you. And I would literally like, hey girl, let's talk, right? Pull her off to the side, or let's go to lunch. And actually let people see that we're going to lunch. That was the other thing. Like, we can't be seen together. But it was like, I just want you to know, I'm not competing. I refuse. Right. I know the game that gets played, but I refuse to do that. I don't want to. I have no desire to compete with my sister. I don't want to do it. And so I had to almost physically disengage, in a sense, right, from the idea, the mindset, and the environment that set that up for it to be a thing. Because it is it's a real thing. It is set up for you to be in.
It's a divide and conquer. It's divide and conquer.
So, and it's specifically though in these environments, in my environment, in the STEM environment, it is set up that way because it's a white male dominated world, and they're like, yeah, there's only space for one of you. And whether that's written or unwritten or unspoken, and so it's well known and accepted. And so you either will buy in or you will not. And at some point I had to choose not to do that.
Yes. So making a conscious decision, I'm not going to do this. And I think that's hard because I think this is the part that trips many of us up is we know it's a game, right? So we all know it's a game, but why is it that some of us get tripped up by it and engage in its behavior? So I think that's part of what's so painful about it is that it's clear it's a game, right? It's clear it's divide and conquer, but so many of our sisters fall into that trap, right? And then it leads to a lot of these negative types of behaviors. So what about the rest of you in terms of these examples of negative examples of Black women who are not supporting you or harming you?
One thing that I want to lift up, I still consider myself fairly early in my career, even though I've been in education for about 10 years, there's so much more left for me to do, so much more for me to learn. And so I've gone into organizations and I have seen and found such phenomenal accomplished, beautiful Black women. Even as I'm sitting here amongst this panel, you know, I really pride myself on standing on the shoulders of giants, like, and following after, you know, my ancestors. Like, those things are planted deep for me. And one of the things that hurt me the most is, you know, when I was in a role in my first time being in like leadership, and I found this very powerful Black woman who I saw as a mentor, right? Like, she was someone that kind of took me under her wing and took time to show me and coach me and tell me. We would sit, we'd have drinks and talk. So there was like this connectiveness there from like a mentorship standpoint. And then we get into a shared space, a mixed race space, and immediately that persona changed. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this the same woman? Is this the same interaction? Is this the same person that I had, you know, had deeply looked up to and had this admiration for, and who had been taking a lot of time to coach me and like bring me into sisterhood? And so I think the thing that was like just most painful for me was just the shock of it all. Um, and being being naive to the fact that I would have another Black woman hurt me. It was just
Yeah.
something I had never even thought about. It kind
Yeah.
of was like when you get the veil removed from your eyes and you are finally like out into the world. That's what I
Yeah.
felt like. I was like, oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
um, I think that's what was most painful for me, and I had to go through a grieving process. I don't think we talk about enough, like when
Yeah.
that happens to you and you have
Yeah.
such a traumatic experience with another Black woman, that you literally go through a grieving process
Yes. Yes.
because of that. And so that was what was most painful for me, is that I just never expected it. It was something that kind of hit me left curve. And it was
Yeah.
also someone that I looked up to and I admired.
Right.
And, you know, we've talked a lot about competition around, you know, like with roles and, you know, maybe this person might take my place in this organization. But we also aren't talking about like sometimes people are jealous of your divine light. Like, I'm not
Mm.
even in your space to take a position from you. It's just who God ordained me to be and how
Right.
to show up in space. And so
Yes.
there's some healing that has to go on with you loving yourself and who you are as
Yes.
a person. It's not
Yes.
a position that I can take from you, right?
Yes.
It's just the divine light that we bring. And I think folks have not searched and found that for themselves. And so
Yes.
it's intimidating to see that in other people. And I've
Yes.
witnessed that sadly amongst Black women. And that's what's hurt the most, is that we aren't bringing that light together, and
Yeah.
instead trying to dim that light in each of us that's so needed. All of us,
Exactly.
all of our unique light is needed.
Yes. And that we all have something to contribute. We all have gifts. And the part too, Stephanie, in terms of when you were saying that, you know, there's clearly something going on within that person for them to treat another Black woman in that way. So it's not only the internalized oppression, it's issues about their self-esteem too, and not really being able to stand in there, knowing their own worth. Because why are you threatened by somebody else if you're already bringing something to the table too? It doesn't really make any sense. And then, Stephanie, the part about being so thrown off guard. And I think that's why it hurts so bad too, is that sometimes when we're with another Black woman, we think we can kind of exhale a little bit, or we think that, you know, like this person understands us on a different level. They understand what we had to go through to get here. So sometimes we let our guard down. And when that person hurts us, it's even more devastating because we didn't see it coming, right? Or you're like, who is that person? Who is this woman? Like, I don't even know who this woman is. And so it's like this disarming kind of a feeling, right? So what about the rest of you?
I'll share that, I think so much of what we're talking about, particularly the internalized sexism, the internalized racism, the desire for proximity to whiteness, because
Yeah.
whiteness has been the acceptance in
Yes.
American culture. I always speak about America's love affair with racism. And because of that, we have internalized that because, being closer to that has given us some illusion of protection until you need to be reminded that you're not white, and be put back into your place. And I
Right.
think that, you know, that coupled then with an inherently racist and then patriarchal society, and then in cultures where we continue to perpetuate the stereotypes that girls and women shouldn't say anything and we excuse our men. We have
Yeah.
too much coddling, I think, in our communities for for Black men sometimes, or for our boys, and we are really harsh with our girls. And then that plays out in the dynamics also in the workspace. And it can, or in your personal space. And I
Yeah.
think that we, while simultaneously, and Nzingha, I'm gonna talk to you like how I need a session with you, how to do this thing, you know, because especially
Give
when
a
you're
workshop
harmed
on
so
that.
much, right? I'm like, when you're harmed so much,
Yes.
it is difficult to keep re-engaging that piece, because sometimes you can engage people with love, but that means they have to be ready to receive in love, and
Yeah.
they may not be ready for that. And I, you
Yes.
know, in one of the roles I had, I was in a role for almost 2 years. And I mentioned working for this, you know, working in the supervisor I had at the time, you know, very harsh.
Mm.
And there was, you know, the C-suite, which was not located, or, you know, the sites and the clinics were across New York City. And so when I resigned, you know, of course, it's like the, you know, why are you leaving? And close to when I was resigning, I had a conversation with, you know, a Black woman who was C-suite, and I shared what I had been going through.
Mm.
And she told me, yeah, I know. And it hurt so bad.
Wow. That she knew and she didn't try to help you, or
And
she didn't reach
because
out to you.
she didn't, because of
Wow.
her positional power, she had the authority to stop my director from this harmful behavior, which wasn't just targeted at me, it was targeted at many people. But what I saw in that instant was there was a desire for profit over people. They would rather trade the, you know, my safety and the safety of the employees for the profitability of seeing the amount of clients that under that leadership we were doing, like driving. And it was like slave master, right?
Yeah.
But then it was the overseer who was the Uncle Tom, because you knew what was happening. And even though I didn't know her well, I knew her, you know, in the peripherals of, she is like, you know, C-suite, you know,
Yeah.
at headquarters downtown. It
Yeah.
was, I remember when it struck me when I left that she knew. That
Yes.
pain was so deep for me, because I was like, how could you know this? And you never even tried to rescue me. How could
No.
you know this person not only was harming me, but all of the people that worked under her?
Yeah.
And you allowed it. And you were her boss's boss. You
Right.
could have literally said, stop your crap.
Right.
Or get out of here. Because
Right.
before I got there were those issues. And it wasn't just our department. There were other departments there that had challenges with this person, but she was the head
Yeah.
at that site. And, you know, when I came in, I was working and building bridges, because I'm like, we're treating the same patients. We can't not be talking.
Yeah.
But she relished in firing people. She relished in being mean to people. She,
Oh,
like,
God.
I'm not joking. Like, I mean, I won't diagnose clinically right now, but still, it was this, she liked harming people.
Well, clearly she was miserable, right? I mean,
Yes,
yes.
but they knew. But the clinic
Wow.
was making money. The clinic was one of the larger clinics.
Wow.
She was friends and inappropriately with some other people, and so they allowed it. And all of that didn't bother me until I knew that the Black woman who had the positional authority to step in and not only help me, but help others, chose not to. And
Mm.
then asked me why I was leaving.
Wow.
Can I just add something to that experience? Because
Yes.
it seems like it's bound to, and this has absolutely been a part of my journey. And, you know, so I am absolutely a mobilizer and organizer. And when you said profit over people, it just brought so much to me. And the one thing that I want to just elevate is, what we all kind of know as this dual consciousness, this dual experience of Black people in white America, and working in white institutions and institutions that are privileged and rooted in white supremacy. And that is mostly any organization. We live in a privileged society, and in order for most institutions to be successful in a privileged society, they're going to operate on some level in privilege.
Yes.
So, when we talk about having these experiences, these intimate experiences, one-on-one experience with Black women, but then when we enter into the professional workspace with other races, it's a different experience with the same Black woman. I really attribute it to that. In order for Black women to feel like they are successful, or to even be successful in these privileged, primarily white institutions, we are expected, and we have to play the game at some point, to some extent, to be successful and to stay there. And so that is really what I attribute to what we call it shape shifting, code switching, or whatever it is that allows us to be successful and remain in those spaces. And I just want to say that, and I guess this is going into that next question about what has helped with my healing, is that knowing that those privileged organizations, those privileged institutions that are operating in privilege, they are not meant for authentic African American women being their authentic selves in their authentic experiences. So privilege is going to roll like privilege rolls. It's like gears in a factory. It's going to click, click, click as long as all the gears are turning. When you put someone in there that's authentic and that's not going to enable and reinforce privilege, the system is going to spit them out. So I already know that someone like myself, that's a DEI advocate, that's going to point out inequities, I am not going to be successful, and I'm not going to be long lasting in a privileged institution. So I just automatically know that I am going to have this dissonance, and that sooner or later, either I'm going to leave or the system is going to it's going to spit me out. So that's kind of how I've addressed that that dissonance, that two experiences with the same person, is just recognizing that is how they fit into the system, and just knowing that I'm not going to fit in that system. So I just wanted to elevate that, and I know you all know that you're not crazy, but just to, again, kind of, look at what we're experiencing, what we're talking about in the larger system of privilege and systemic oppression. And just to, again, just reiterate that these organizations, the primarily white institutions, they are functioning exactly as they have been designed to function. They are reinforcing, they are procreating, they are recreating the same system, the same environment, the same toxicity that they have been doing for 400 years. So when we introduce something new, something authentic, something foreign to them, it's going to split it out. We're going to clog up the gears. We're going to, it's going to crunch, it's going to grind, it's going to spit us out.
Yes. And I see somebody in the chat said that's the reason that we've gone out on our own, right? So to some degree, we understand how systems function, right? We understand that the system is designed to operate in a certain way, and anybody who doesn't fit in that is kind of pushed out, right? So that part, but I think I also, or the and that I hear is that, many times when we get a part of these systems, sometimes some of us kind of sell our souls, right, for the benefit of being in these systems. And whoever's collateral damage is just collateral damage, right? And that's the part that's harmful, is to think that another Black woman would treat you like you're collateral damage just for the sake of making some money or making a business money. It's not even their business, right? So that's one thing. The other thing I want to say too is that when we think about these spaces, when we think about systems, that it's not just white people we're talking about white supremacist culture, right? We're talking about white supremacist behaviors, because the people may not be white, but they might be engaging in these white supremacist behaviors, okay? So I think somebody else is going to say something.
Yeah, you hit it, Dr. Kamani. I was going to say this, and this is what kind of always brings me back to sanity. My elder girlfriends and I talk about, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything that you think you understand will only confuse you. I didn't say that.
Ah,
Neely Fuller said that. And so I remember we are in these white supremacist constructed systems. And so
yes,
I told a workshop that I did yesterday, I said, because I operate in that system, I practice white supremacy. So my work is to make sure I'm not practicing white supremacy. And that means you have to be in spaces and places that remind you about your behavior. Because when you're alone in those systems, you can easily be set up. You can be set up to, in fact, as Devin Brown is saying in the chat, to sell your own soul. And so you have to be
yeah,
rooted in your system. And Black women are really good about doing this. If we're one of those authentic folks that Melanie talks about, you got to go in systems and find the 1 or 2 or 4 people that are like you, and they may be
yeah,
way on the other side of the institution, the corporation, the campus, but you know, or they may have to be outside, because you are walking into systems and structures that are designed to make you white supremacists, just
yeah,
like they are. And so
yeah.
you know, you gotta clean yourself up. You gotta wash that stuff off every single day.
Yes, yes, yes. So you actually raised a point that I wanted to kind of transition on, right? But I also want to give some space to something that historically, some historical issues that have divided us in terms of Black sisterhood, right? So I just want to give a moment to speak to that. So in terms of issues of skin color, hair texture, physical features, perceived social status, organizational membership, all these different things, right? How do you see these things still operating, right? So they've been operating a long time, but they're still operating. I still hear certain things, right? So how are these things still operating? Are we past these things? I don't think so. So in what ways do you see these issues still operating before we start talking about healing? Anyone?
I'll say that when I came to America, I was not really aware that much of the deep, deep, deep colorism. And I'm from the Caribbean. And so we have colorism in the Caribbean a lot. But I think there was a difference for me of being in a country where, you know, my leaders look like me, my doctors look like me. And the reality is I never thought about looking like anything else because I didn't have to think about it. You know, yes, there's different pigments in my family and different people come together. Caribbean is a melting pot. So, you know, somebody who is phenotypically Chinese speaking Jamaican patois is very normal to me. It's never surprising, but I don't know why people are surprised by that.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, or speaking in a full Bajan dialect, it makes sense to me in my brain. But one thing I didn't realize when I came here, for many years, I was told I was an Oreo. And I was told that by Black women. And I didn't know what that meant. First of all, I don't even like it. I don't even think it tastes good. So I was like, what does this mean? But
Uh-huh.
as I continued, it was like, well, then it was some other term I remember now, but it's like, well, you're lighter. I'm like, well, no, I'm not. Because my whole life, my goal is to be darker. Because I'm just like, listen, I want to be dark. I want to be darker because I've always said, oh my gosh, the most beautiful women I know are like Lupita Nyong'o. I'm like,
Yeah.
hello, God, thank you, Jesus, for the angel that walks this earth. Yes, hallelujah. Like, don't you know the women that I look up to are very various shades. But it wasn't until I started becoming older and realizing those divides. And I was just like, but do you guys understand this is rooted in slavery?
Yes.
And then this is rooted in white supremacy culture. That's not just here. You go to India, you see our Indian sisters trying to lighten their skin and bleach their skin the same way our Nigerian sisters have done, the same way
Yeah.
our Caribbean sisters have done, the same way our American sisters have done.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and because again, that proximity to whiteness, or the illusion of the proximity to whiteness, allows some measure of humanity to be dictated and to be granted until. But also when I think of our sisters who at the time would have been in house Negroes, they, being raped and
Mm-hmm.
assaulted and abused because of that. I see so often it's like, I only like a light-skinned girl. What the heck does someone's pigment have to do with the quality of their thoughts, the quality of their heart, the quality of their life, the way that they choose to live their life? But I see those things as, again, the real and ongoing
Mm-hmm.
legacy of
Yeah.
racism and internalized oppression, that
Yeah.
we then exact the same violence against each other that are the massa it exacted against us. And we
Yes.
don't understand, and it was mentioned earlier about divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
It is divide and conquer so we would never prosper, and it has continued to work. And I
Yes.
do understand why the perceived, cliques, we're part of this group, we're part of this group. Yes, I'm part of a sorority. Some of my best friends are AKAs, Deltas, SG, we could keep going. And it hasn't mattered, what does it matter? Through this sisterhood, I've been able to meet amazing other women in other sisterhoods, and we're all fighting for the same thing. So I
Yeah.
think that we really have to prayerfully start with what we're teaching in our homes. Because like
Yes.
Claire, this starts at home. When you tell
Yes.
the little girl that she's not pretty or she's not smart, or you mention the color of her skin. When we talk about hair, I mentioned having a family member who I love tell me that because I have locks, which are so much part of my cultural identity as a West Indian woman,
Mm-hmm.
that they would never hire me because of my hair, despite being wise, despite being smart. And now we see the studies coming out talking about chemical relaxers being connected to cancer in Black women.
Right.
This identity and desire so much to be white and close to white and be accepted by white has cost us our lives, our fertility, our reproductive health, our
Yes.
spiritual well-being, and our souls. And
Yes.
until we really continue to have these conversations, starting within our homes and in our churches,
Yep.
and with our men,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is going to continue. And it is
Yes.
really painful for me to see that divide, because I look back and I say, wow, these slave masters have died, but their legacy continues and it's living in us.
Every day. Every day. Yes. And I'm so glad you said that, Claire, because we see the ramifications in our homes, in our schools, in our communities, right? I'm sure that all of us have some type of story about something related to skin color, all of these different things, right? So basically what we're saying is the step forward to healing is that we recognize these issues, these dynamics that are dividing us, and that we stop engaging in these types of behaviors, right? We're same team, right? We're all same team, okay? So as we think about, as we start talking about healing, what kind of things do you feel are needed individually and collectively for us as a people to start healing, right? So we're recognizing ways to divide and conquer. We're recognizing issues of internalized oppression. We're recognizing issues of self-esteem. We're recognizing issues about systemic factors in terms of this white supremacist way of functioning. What do we do now? What do we do now? What in terms of healing? What do we do? We've identified why it's so painful. What do we do now?
Dr. Kamani, sir, I would like to say just a little bit on the topic of,
Okay.
so obviously I'm fair skinned. Oh, I should probably start off by saying I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. All my life, I've been treated differently. I am probably one of the only light-skinned women in my family. So growing up here in Chicago, that was very, very interesting. I was called an Oreo. They made fun of what I looked like. They also made fun of how I spoke. That was always something difficult to deal with. And as I sit here as a 42-year-old woman, I can honestly say that I struggled throughout my 30s trying to wrap my head around the statements that my mother and my sisters would say. Oh, they're just jealous. I couldn't understand it. You got to make it make sense for me, because we are all afforded the same opportunities. I didn't choose what I would look like. I didn't choose my skin color. It just happened to me, right? And I remember me and Dr. Claire had a conversation a few days ago about historical slavery, the house slave and the field slave, right? And to me, although they were experiencing different forms of trauma,
Mhm.
it's still trauma, right?
Right.
On both
Right.
sides, right?
Right.
So I think, to me, a solution is acknowledging that the trauma was there for both, right? So
Yes.
how do we accept each other for who we are, period, irregardless of what
Yes.
we look like, irregardless of what our hair is, our body shape, our skin color. We are here and we survived, right? So accepting people for who we are. What I like to do with my clients is to teach them to depict their own image of what beauty is. That's super important to me.
Mhm.
For me to allow myself to say, well, beauty is whatever I say it is, not allow any other person, white or European, whatever, to tell me
Yeah.
that they are the image of beauty. I'm
Right.
not letting that happen. For me, it's, Black, it's African
Yes.
American, it's whatever. And I think it's just a matter of acknowledging us as a people, period,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
being loyal to that.
Yeah.
But I'll
So
say your
recognize that we
question
have
was,
a
how is this
history.
still present? I think that people have a perception, that's saying light skinned women are sedity, we're difficult and we think we're better. I don't know where it came from, but people still treat me that way. I
Mhm.
could tell you that is still my experience. I think on our last discussion, I told you that I had this habit of really kind of posturing myself so that people would not feel intimidated by me. Um, that was why, because I've always been treated as if I was a threat,
Yeah.
or I thought I was better than everyone. And of course, that's not the case. But
Yeah.
there was trauma for me, being targeted in the
Mhm.
workplace or even in social settings. I would posture myself in such a way that I didn't upset anyone or make anyone feel threatened. And it was always because of my skin color, what I looked like, things of that nature. So,
Yeah. So you're talking, Samantha, in terms of people projecting their biases onto you, right? And then ways that you've had to adapt or try to dim yourself or not present a certain way because of people's own projections. So I think what you're saying too is, and not only defining like what do you say is beautiful for yourself, but also the importance of recognizing and self-reflecting for ourselves about times that we may project. Like what part of that is I'm really assessing her behavior, or is this just me projecting something onto her, right? So I think that that takes a big leap in terms of having a level of self-reflection and really being okay with saying to ourselves, "Man, that's me." You know what I'm saying? I'm tripping. I need to work on that, right? Dr. Anderson, I think that you came off mute.
Yeah, man, Samantha, you nailed that. Just say that. But I really I just want to think of, I've thought about this in so many instances, in terms of the colorism and internalized and institutionalized racism, um, and what it looks like. Because for me, having worked in predominantly white spaces, it was really easy to recognize it, um, and see it playing itself out, right? So lighter skinned individuals getting opportunities that some of us that had more melanin did not. It was really easy to see those things being played out and to be consciously aware that it was, right? At all levels,
Yes.
all of us were aware that this is part of what it was. That's one thing. But to be at a predominantly Black institution and see it play out is probably one of the saddest things I've ever seen in
Mm,
my life. It is it's like, a big cushion of hurt. I don't know how else to put that, but it
yeah.
didn't matter where you pushed. It was just like, this is Black on Black crime right here, you
Yeah.
know, um, and intentionally in some cases. And so um, it's that was the hardest, and it was the most hurtful, and it actually brings a little bit of anxiety and pain now just thinking about it. And I really do think that that is the work, right?
Yeah.
If we're saying now that I've seen more and more, especially about HBCUs, all the funds are coming the way. People are more interested in what's happening on an HBCU campus. How are we uplifting these kids that we're sending there? Who are the people? Who are these faculty members? Who's the staff members? How are they gelling together? How is this community actually functioning? And if we were to do a deep dive, I'm afraid of what we would find.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I mean, if we're in the business of being honest on this show,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So because I'm thinking it's a cushion, it's a big old cushion of hurt. Same
Mm.
things are being perpetrated there because those same ideals, when we're talking about institutional racism and we're talking about colorism and the like, are still happening, even on HBCU campuses, on predominantly Black institutions campuses, in firms that are predominantly Black. Unfortunately, these things are still occurring.
Yeah.
And so our work, or at least for me, has been to two things. One is to recognize and admit, my trauma and know my triggers,
Yes.
know my own limits, and
Yes.
also know, um, like when you're being pulled in, because I can be
Yes.
honest and say that I haven't been immune to being a part of the peanut gallery. And so it's sort of being more consciously aware that um, those things, all of those things still exist, and that we're not immune to them, but that we all carry our own level of hurt.
Yes.
That's our work, right? If we're going to be as true and real, authentic, all the things that we talk about here, we have to recognize that where we hurt, right?
Yes.
Why we hurt, how we hurt, all the things, and then do that work. Um,
Yes.
and then for me, it was a part of my healing was recognizing that it couldn't have been any different. It was always going to play out that way. It was supposed to play out that way. For me, it's all, like I said on the other show, I have to, like, what were the lessons? What were the things that I was supposed to carry away from that situation, from
Yeah.
interacting with those people, being in that situation? What were the things? So that I can, okay, God, I got it. We don't need to revisit this. I got it, right?
Uh-huh.
And then taking that and being the best version of me I can be, and in the current moment, because I'm
Yeah.
still healing and I'm still processing, and you're still learning, and so
Yeah.
that's been the work. I mean, I had just had a session with my therapist yesterday, and talking through some things and with her, and I'm saying, it's like, just when you think you've made it through, like you've made it over this hurdle, something else will happen, and you're like, nope, ain't quite
Still
made it.
something there. Yeah.
Right. So that's the work, but it's like, it's good work, because
Yes.
come out on the other side, you'll be you'll be a better you. And
Yes.
I think that's the only thing that we can ask of ourselves, is to be the best version of ourselves in any given moment.
Yes.
Be the best you that it is. Be the best Natoshia, the best Stefany, the best Samantha, the best Claire, that we can be in any given moment.
Yes.
Um, and that is a lot of the work.
Yes. So you said a lot. So let me try to just summarize it, right? So you talked about the importance of recognizing when trauma is operating, right? And ways that we have unresolved trauma. And I would say, as Black people, we all have unresolved trauma. So that's the first thing. The second thing is recognizing ways that we might feed into the negativity by either statements or even not saying things. We are still being complicit. The other thing is doing our own work, right? So what does that look like individually and collectively? So you talked about therapy. So, of course, I'm a big up on that, right? As a psychologist, but absolutely we need therapy, because when we think about as Black people, we have our individual traumas, we have our family traumas, we have our community traumas, we have our societal traumas. So all that trauma that we're carrying, right? But we still persevere, we still been doing stuff, but we still have trauma that we need to work through because the trauma is impacting us. So you talked about that, but then you also talked about the importance of systemic healing in terms of recognizing ways that our systems perpetuate a lot of this trauma to this historical division. So that was a lot, right? So in terms of so many things in terms of the healing journey. Now you said something and it made me think about something else, right? So one of the questions I'm posing relates to what happens when we recognize that we are exhibiting these behaviors. So when we are exhibiting negative behaviors towards another Black woman or other Black women, what do we do about it? And I just want to just briefly share with Stefany, right? So I remember I interviewed Stefany about toxic work environments, and she said something that was so profound. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting her to say that. But she said that she recognized that she was becoming toxic, right? So, Stefany, can you talk a little bit in terms of what did you mean by that? And then I want other panelists to talk about what is that like when we honestly have negative feelings or we engage in negative behaviors towards another Black woman, right? Because again, if we're being transparent, we can't heal if we're not transparent, right? So Stefany, can you share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And, I think that we've touched on it a bit in this conversation, like we're all, just like Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum says, we're living in the smog, right? We're
Yeah,
all in some way or another participants of white supremacy. And when you are so engulfed in that culture, it's very likely that you are slipping up, or you move
yeah,
further away from like your roots or your values, or you become very entrenched in that. And so sometimes you need to be pulled back out. And I remember, you get into the mode of the ambition, and you get into the environment where it is constantly white supremacy 24/7, and you feel like this is the way for me to preserve myself. Um, and until I started delving deeper into my own healing journey, I was not able to see that. And so it was very important for me to start unlearning, some of the things that I've been taught. So I really appreciate you, Dr. Claire, just sharing a lot about how we have internalized a lot of our perceptions about Black women, who we are, how we have to show up, and who we have to be from our own families, like the people we love the most. I remember straight up my mom sneering her nose up at a woman in the store because she had her bonnet on. And for a very long time, I had this perception that women who walk in the store with their bonnets on are less than, or or they're a certain type of Black women. And so I had to start unlearning the things that I was taught. I also had to be honest with myself about, where my privilege is in. And I have people in my life that I love very much. Instances where I would walk into a situation and someone would interact differently with me because of my lighter skin. And I would see how the treatment that they would get with darker skin. And, at first I was defensive. I'm like, no, that's not true. You're reading into that all wrong. That didn't happen.
Mhm.
And I had to check myself. No, it happened. And I did get some advantage there. But it takes us moving out of this binary mindset. White supremacy is also connected to something either is or it isn't. And we
Right.
aren't talking enough about how two things can be true at the same time. So my healing journey has also just included with authentic storytelling and taking people's stories for what it is that they say they are. My
Yes.
experience is my authentic experience, but my sister next to me, if she's saying she's having an experience too, and I was a part of that experience and playing a victim of harm, that's just as much true. And that has
Yes.
been a big piece of my healing journey and has helped me not only recognize the dynamics that are playing out and how I might be contributing to it, but also just be a better sister and listen to
Yes.
people.
Yes. So that sense of, I hear you, and I may not have a similar experience, but I'm not going to discount it, right? Because we know that we discount things, we silence our sisters, that's oppressing them also. And then we have to look at in what ways we were complicit and not speaking up about certain things, right? Okay. Okay. What about the rest of you?
Yeah, I want to
Well,
add.
go ahead. Go ahead, Dr.
You
Claire.
sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I really love what Stefany said, and I think that for us, when you talked about like having to look at ourselves, that's so necessary, because it's so easy to say, well, other people did it,
Yeah.
and recognize where some of those nuances are.
Yeah.
I can't, or I am not consciously aware of instances where I may have caused harm to another Black woman, but I can't deny that if that was their experience, that was their experience.
Right.
And, we didn't have Nzingha in our lives to be like, let's come together and be mature women and talk about these things.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen, but we're going to operate
for the Nzingha's workshop.
But I think that, it is really important that we acknowledge, because one of the things that we are denied is the existence of our humanity. And that's a function of white supremacy.
Yeah.
And until and unless we continue to have these conversations, we are going to continue to be part of that system of harm towards ourselves and other women. Black women, Asian women, Hispanic women, all this goes for all the women, all the women identified individuals.
Yeah.
Because the reality is our desire to heal must become stronger than our fear of what it's going to take to leave the comfort of our hurt. Because let's be clear, sometimes we are comfortable in the position of being hurt or victimized in this space. We become, it's comfortable, and not because it's conscious, because a lot of this is unconscious, but it has to be. And the reason why is because if we don't heal, we will continue to harm. And the refusal to heal has been the personal and genetic genocide of the Black race in this country and the world over. Mm-hmm. We are continuing the genocide. We are continuing our own Holocaust because we won't address the issues internally. Our Holocaust never ended. It has not ended.
Yeah.
We can no longer sit by and continue to be willing participants in this process.
Right. Right.
And that is what we have done, because we don't have these conversations in our homes. I come from a culture where you don't talk about this. What happens in the house stays in the house. And that's not just in the Caribbean. I've heard that saying in different ways here. My friends may have different vernacular or jargon for saying it depending on if they're from Louisiana but it's the same sentiment.
Yes.
And that goes for mental health. That goes for sexual violence in our homes, domestic violence, alcoholism, all of it. Because we continue to connect shame to this piece and live in this binary of good or bad. We are not good or bad. There's a continuum. We are a spectrum of humanity. Yeah. Each of us individually. And until we get to the point of facing that physically and being willing to heal ourselves and to participate in that. So I'm going to say, as a clinician, Black women go to therapy. Black men go to therapy. Take your children to therapy. Take your family to therapy. And when your family tells you don't need therapy, you just need Jesus, tell them Jesus was the first therapist that walked this earth.
Okay. Yes. Get help, right? And the part two, Dr. Claire, you were talking about in terms of, that we are perpetuating trauma in many different ways because we have unresolved trauma. And when unresolved trauma is not treated, it comes out in all these different ways. And then we have it coupled on a cultural way of being many times that we teach each other, what happens in this house doesn't leave this house, right? But then we can't heal. And so we perpetuate these things. And when we think about trauma, we think about hurt people, right? We've all heard that. But the thing is, how do we disrupt that? And recognizing, acknowledging that we have trauma and that we are walking through trauma, that doesn't mean we define ourselves about our trauma, right? That doesn't mean that we are trauma bonding with everybody. It means that we understand that we have healing to do and we engage actively, individually, and collectively for our healing, but we got to be about it, right? So I think that these conversations are really showing that we are about the healing, and being open and honest is the first step, right? So I mentioned before, I heard a young lady say, you can't heal what you don't reveal. So if we don't reveal these things, we will not be able to heal and to grow. So Samantha, you were going to say something as well.
Yeah, so I'll try to make it really, really quick. So I was going for a position, and my opponent lost. Obviously, I won. And shortly after I won, I received an email that she was interested in doing some things in my area. We didn't respond to her in a timely fashion, and she ran to the white man to throw me under the bus. There was nothing I really needed to do, but she threw me under the bus. So this was my hurt. And she's like much older Black woman, pro-Black, right? I'm reneging that card because you can't be pro-Black.
But she reneged it already when she did that.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So anyway, today I was watching her present, and one of my colleagues asked me, are you able to see her beyond your experience with her? And I said, I can't.
Yeah.
It was me being honest. I can't.
Yeah.
I was very new to this position. You came in, threw me under the bus for no apparent reason. Well, no other reason but for your own glory. Went to the white man. It was one, I was embarrassed and I was hurt. I expected so much better from her.
Yeah.
But today I was very honest. I didn't do anything toxic. I didn't.
Yeah.
I sat, I listened, but I was being honest about the fact that I could not see her past her behavior.
Yes.
And I could not give her any accolades. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I could not.
Being
and
true
that's
to
just
yourself.
me. Absolutely. I couldn't, because one, the way she came in was foul. And two, you didn't acknowledge your successor, but you want respect. That was problematic for me. And then came in trying to take something away from me that I had earned through hard work. So that was problematic. But I think that's just me owning my stuff.
Yeah.
Like I could not see. And I was honest with my colleagues. I said, no, I can't, but I'm trying. I was honest and I said, I'm trying. I'm trying. I don't really engage in mean girl behavior. Yeah.
No. But that's healing. Because there's a difference between mean girl. Mean girl behavior is just gossiping about her, right? But you being truthful to, no, I cannot. That's, how often are we able to really say the truth about how we really feel, right? So that's liberating. And then the part two, Samantha, what you talked about when she went to the white man about what you did, that's like slave behavior, right? So when you think about these residual, behaviors rooted in slavery, like Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome, like that's just such a reflection of that. And when you think about, this is not what I wanted for our relationship, or this is not how I wanted this exchange, but I still cannot lie, right? I love myself enough. I honor myself enough that I can't pretend like it's okay. And I just remember what James Baldwin said, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. I'm looking at your behavior. And think about us as Black people. We are always looking at your behavior, right? So you can say one thing, but if your behavior is not consistent with that, we don't believe you, right? So as we're winding down, I want us to think about the Black girls, right? So what would you say to Black girls at this stage, right, about how they see other Black girls or Black women? Because unfortunately, I know in my clinical work with Black girls, I have heard so many times them saying, I can't trust females, right? I can't. And I'm like, oh my God, what would you say to a Black girl who would say something like that to you? What would you say to her?
I'll just go ahead and jump in really quickly, because I held that program in Oakland for Black girls, and I heard this all the time. And what I really encourage us to do is sit in circle with Black girls, because one of the things that they shared is that they're very disappointed in Black women and what Black women have modeled for them. Not all Black women, but I had one case where a young Black girl had witnessed a murder, and her mom sent her to school. And
Wow.
and I had to just like shut the whole school down and say, what are we teaching her about the value of protecting her spirit, much less whoever was the person that was murdered. And but I think you all have hit it. I was just sitting here thinking to myself, this is so good, but we have to come into space, and we cannot throw up and bleed on Black girls when we are cut. We can't then make them, we can't adult them in the way that school systems adult them, right?
Yeah.
And so we end up doing the same thing. And then we can look at our own families where we grew up way too fast, and we're not
Yeah.
allowed to play. And so what I would say to Black girls are, find women who can nurture you, who are not adulting you, who are not bringing their harm to you, who are not attempting to be your friend, because we need to be in a space where we are allowing Black girls to be Black girls, allowing them to play, allowing them to be vulnerable. And so telling them, when you get in a space and Black women are throwing up on you, and we know we do that with our hurt, we can overshare to get out of that space and get into space with Black women who are loving on you and creating a healing space for you to get through the things that you have to get through. Because I'm sorry, in our school systems, and I was in Oakland, California, we so many of the Black women came in pain, and then put that pain on Black children. And so we have got to tell Black children, seek women like women in this space who are going to love up on you and walk you through your pain and your healing and your joy. Everything ain't pain and healing, and the joy and the fun.
Yes.
So I would say Nzingha nailed that too. But I mean, girls are that's my heart group, right? That's one of my heart groups, is Black girls in particulars, because I'm a Black girl. But also because I just think that they are adultified really young.
Yeah.
They are expected to know, think, act differently than any other group, and that's everywhere. Like it's not just in school. I mean, at church, you guys know, at church for sure, stores, the gas station, at home, there are these unrealistic expectations that we have placed on Black girls as Black moms and dads. It's not, they're not going to win that game, right? And then when they do fail, we don't give them a safe place to land, right? We don't, the whole, what is it? Love our sons, raise our daughters, or something like that is the saying, right? Um, yeah, that's true. That is what is happening. We don't teach them how to have good relationships. We don't teach them to have what constitutes good relationships with your sisters.
Yes.
They don't have, I won't say they don't have those images, because sometimes they do, but like they don't know to recognize that, right? Because that's not a part of the narrative. That's not a part of the conversations that they see and are happening. They are mimicking what, Black women on TV behaving badly, and they're thinking, okay, let me do that because it's making these people money, right?
Right.
Are seeing, all sorts of girls being gamified, girls being sexualized, all the things that we know are bad for them. And I don't mean it like as in, I mean it's bad for them at this point. So, and I will tell everyone here that I'm a Black girl who was molested when she was young. And so the idea of being a sexual being, of being in a relationship with a male it's warped. It was warped very young. So I've walked through this path where I've had to relearn all of that stuff as an adult that I should have never known as a kid, but having to learn it in a healthy way as an
Yeah.
adult. You don't want that path. you know,
Yeah.
you do not want that path. And so it's up to us as the adults in the space and the adults who are interacting with girls to let them be girls, to let that innocence that they have stay, to ask the questions, to love up on them, like Nzingha said, to really, I want to say mother them in a
Yeah.
way in which we weren't, right? And that our mothers didn't know how to do. But I have to believe that when we know better, we do better, and we know
Yeah.
better now, right? So
Yes.
we have to be intentional about allowing our kids, our girls, to be girls in all the
Yes.
ways that girls are girls, you know.
Yes.
Be a teacher, but be a lover of their whole selves, right? All of it. And
Yes.
that's the first good step. And then we also have to teach them healthy boundaries, and we
Yes.
have to have those tough, hard conversations with them where we tell them the truth. Like, kids can handle it, but
Hmm.
we don't have to tell them our truth, right? Like, if you're
Right.
hurting, your boyfriend left, the husband's gone, the work situation is going on, your kid is not your therapist. There's
No.
a
Or your best friend.
or your best friend. No,
Right.
that's your
Yeah.
kid. So
Yeah.
you treat them as such. And you have
Yes.
to remember that their brains aren't developed enough to handle your situations. They're just not
Yes.
their kids. You need to let them be kids for as long as they can
Yes.
be kids.
Exactly, because they have a long road. They got all this other stuff to deal with the rest of their lives, right? So when can we have that moment where they can truly be children? And also, what are the ways that we support them in having a voice, right? So a lot of times you'll hear mothers or people in the community say, "Shut up, you're a kid. Shut up," right? But their voice is important, and so we don't want children and Black girls to feel like their voice doesn't matter, because then what? They seek validation somewhere else that generally is not healthy for them. Then the other
Or
part you talk.
it shows up in ways that aren't healthy. Because then it's like they're the disruptive Black girls in class, and so they don't get a chance to speak at home.
Right.
They come to class and you ask them a question. Yeah, I'm gonna get all of this out, right?
Yeah.
Because when they get home, their voice is lost, it's gone, it's not there. They don't have a
Yeah.
platform in which they can express themselves. So when they get
Yeah.
a place where it's that they're not oppressed,
Yeah.
this is what happens.
Yes, yes. And also, I think it's important too, you raise something in terms of being sexualized, like overly sexualized, because many of our Black girls they're seen as older than they really are, right? And they're seen as sexual objects, right? And so, what is it that we do in terms of helping to really counter those social messages that are, especially now with social media, right? In terms of overly sexualized, like this is what a woman is, right? So how do we help Black girls recognize these social images and how to counter that so they don't internalize it? Dr. Claire, I see you.
So thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, for sharing your story and your journey with us. I really do want to center and acknowledge that. And Nzingha also for talking about your experience in that program. We do have to allow our kids to be kids. I
Yeah.
love the fact that you said, Dr. Anderson, your kids are not your friends. And I wanted to add, they're not your partners.
Right.
Because we not only parentify our children, but we partnerify our children.
Yes.
Because especially if we're thinking of children in homes that may not have a father figure or may not have a mother figure, whatever the dynamic is, then we put that on them. And chronologically, we are adults, but emotionally, we are stunted because our development and our emotional expressions have been arrested from the time we were young because
Yeah.
we were not allowed the privilege to be young girls. So
Yeah.
how can we, as now chronologically adults, allow girls to be girls when we don't know that because they was never modeled for us? So
Right.
what I would say to a Black girl is to apologize to that Black girl first. On behalf of every person that never apologized to her, on behalf of every person that didn't acknowledge her worth and her value, even if that was her mother, even if it was her grandmother, even if it was her teacher, even if it was her friend, and even if it was herself. Because the reality is that particularly when we're talking about Black diaspora, we've always been kinship based, but a matriarchal based approach. So where are Black girls learning this from? Where do Black girls learn that you can't trust Black women from? Other Black women. Where do Black girls learn that Black women are always going to be in competition with them, or they're jealous of them? How can an 8-year-old with no real concept of the full world, because they're not fully in the world, they're still hopefully to some level shielded
Yes.
from the responsibility of being fully in the world, where would they get that message from? They get that message from the world that's been created around them. And that world is shaped by the adults in their life, the chronological adults who are yet and still emotionally stunted.
Yes.
Until we also acknowledge that we cannot say to a child, know your place and be quiet verbally, but then we have an expectation of them to be mature and show up as an adult. That is a mixed message. And that's what we do in our culture.
Yes.
We are harsh with our girls. And I'm not going to say that we're not harsh with our males, because I know that we will have Black men say, Black women always say that we don't have it. Look, we don't have time for oppression Olympics. We're not doing that. Because we do not have time for oppression Olympics. But your experiences are different. Your gendered identity in the society we live in is different. I have had friends who, their mothers, I have really quickly a friend, West Indian as well, went to college, didn't know how to boil water. But when we were in high school, it was his sister had to do everything for him. She was only maybe 3 or 4 years older. Cook, clean, wash his clothes, iron his clothes, all this harsh. And I'll never forget, after the first semester, I came back because so much trauma, lost a loved one in September 11th, lost a loved one to suicide. I just couldn't deal with being out, so far. But when we connected, he was just like, I used to think it was funny. And now I hate my mother because she made me an invalid. I don't even know how to take care of myself.
Wow.
Because then he went to college with other people who were like, what do you mean you don't know how to make a hot dog? What do you mean you don't know how to iron your shirt? And so what he thought, because of the coddling and the revering and propping up as though he was a king because there was no man in the home, then became his downfall. And he realized that.
Right.
So we have to stop parentifying.
Yeah.
But we also have to be willing, again, Black women and Black men, to do the work necessary to heal ourselves, to be in touch with the inner child that didn't get to be a child within ourselves. Because until we reach back and pull that inner child and hug the inner child in us and to love on the inner child within us, we're not going to be able to do it for the kids that are around us right now. We're not. Because we don't apologize to our kids, right? If parents do something wrong, how often do they say, I was wrong? But yet you will scream and demand that that Black girl or that Black boy apologize to you with force and power and authority and control over them. Looks a lot like the tools that slave masters used to get us to do what they wanted us to do. And you don't understand why our kids are acting the way they're acting. No one says to them, be a kid, go play, go jump. We are stressed and we are dealing with a lot. Children are smart. They know what's going on. We should tell them to the capacity they can handle. But you're not saying to them, oh my God, I can't pay the bills. And because I lost, you're saying we're having some difficulty right now. You are not putting that on them, but we put so much on them. And again, go back. Our families, the way that the Black family has been broken is by breaking the Black family apart. And this is generational.
Yes.
We need our men in the home. Girls will not know what healthy boundaries are with men without healthy, honorable men modeling that for them. Because as a woman, I firmly believe in equality and equity, but I know that I am not, and my experience is not that of a man. I cannot teach what a man can teach, and that is why
Right.
they're important and needed and valued. Just as a man cannot teach what a woman can teach, and that's why women are necessary, important, and to be in that value system. But we have to be able to support, to celebrate, and allow our children to be the fullness of who they are and stop stunting their growth, because we're
Yes.
walking around chronologically older and a whole bunch of toddlers who've never been soothed.
Yes. So developmentally, we're stuck, right? Because of what we've gone through. And also just to emphasize as we're winding down that healing is a process, right? So this is part of a process for longer processing and longer healing. And so my hope is that everyone who's here today, who's on a panel, who's listening, that we really honor ourselves and that we engage in healing for ourselves, but also the younger generation, right? Because we want to break that generational transmission of trauma. We want to break it, right? But we have to be open and honest and really engage in the healing. So as we're winding down, I just want to read the comments, because the comments were just, I couldn't even keep up. Okay. So many comments. I want to read the comments, and then we're going to wind down. I'm going to have each of you think of parting message that you want that Black women who are listening to this right now, what is it that you want to convey to them? Okay, so just think about your parting message, and then you're going to share also how people can contact you, what services you have to offer, and how people can contact you. So I'm going to read the chat. So greeting, party people, good evening, good evening. Very powerful conversation. If Black women could embrace each other with the sincere love, respect, and support, we will be a powerful force together. Solidarity, yes. We must always support each other from our past experiences and the current social and political climate that we are living in. We must always lift each other up. Our sisters are our mirrors of empowerment, beauty, and safety. Where are my sisters? You got some AKs in the house, Samantha. Um, okay, yes, that's it. Support by praising someone else doesn't take away from your own or our own shine. There's enough out here for all of us. Good for you. Yes, restorative practices. Um, National trainer with restorative practices. Envy challenges sisterhood. And to verbally state awareness of envy noticed by another turns you into someone who thinks I'm better than, can be challenging. It's okay to say, I need a moment, I need a break. Protect your mental and emotions. Well done. People think it's a zero-sum game. Real sisterhood is based on trust, loyalty, forgiveness, compassion, and dependability. Make it a goal to be a true friend and to value your meaningful female relationships. Crabs in the barrel, love work value. Okay, crabs in the barrel. I'm really surprised that we're acting like this towards one another. I'm surprised. Yeah, okay. Some people forget, some women forget that it's enough room at the top for all of us. Sometimes some Black women want to be the only one in the building, office room, etc. What do we mean by Black women in this discussion? We'd love to hear about how narrow notions of Blackness is not considered experiences of non-African American Black folks impacts this topic. I think I'm a little confused about that. Any thoughts about that?
I
What do we
don't
mean by
have
Black?
thoughts on it, but I mean, I think conversations are always in the context of where they are. So we're currently in America, but I've mentioned several times that I am a West Indian woman, and that
Yeah,
is the difference, because I don't identify as African American, because I'm not. I am
yeah.
a Caribbean woman. I am Bayesian first, always.
Yeah. So we're talking about Black women, regardless of where you're from, right? We're talking about Black women in sisterhood. Okay. Love affair with racism. Oh, the C-suite is like the corporate suite, right? Like the administrative level. Is that right? Okay. Okay. Indirect toxic environment. This is the reason why many of us go for our own. Speak truth. If you sell your soul, it's hard to watch out for others. How do you navigate being the token Black woman in the room but remain authentic? Anyone want to answer that? How do you navigate being the token Black woman in the room but remain authentic?
I'll
You, oh,
respond.
okay.
For me, I like
I'll
to.
go to Dr. Anderson after that. Yes. Go
So
ahead, Samantha.
I use it to my advantage, and I advocate. So I'm a district chair for the National Association of Social Workers, and I'm a DEI committee member.
Mhm.
It's I want to say maybe my privilege or so has gotten me there, right? My skills also, but I use that to advocate and to advance the field for Black social workers. But I stay true to who I am. I stay
Yes.
true to my purpose and my calling. I let that
Yes.
be the foundation. But if there's a vehicle that is going to help navigate that or get me to other spaces, then I'll use that. But I just stay true to who I am and my ethics.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Anderson, you were going to add something too?
There is no compromise in being yourself. Point blank in the period. When you show up, you have to show up. It's almost like I'm saying to you, it's a mandate. You need to show up with your whole full self in that room. If your hair is kinky, you got braids, you got locks, you got sister locks, you got the creamy crack. What you wear bright colors, you don't like your clothes to match. You wear heels, you wear flats, you wear Jordans, or you wear some name brand Walmart. Whatever it is, you showing up in a space and you're the only one, which means that you have to be in there. You showing up and being fully you is an example of how to do it. So you do that in all that you entail, that you bring with you. You do that and you sit, be professional, whatever that looks like for you, and you do the job. That's it,
Yeah.
point blank.
Yes. You said period. You said that's it, right? Just be yourself, right? Melanie, you want to say something?
Yes, I've had this happen, and for better or for worse, I believe for better, I've acknowledged it and called it out and stated that if that is where the organization is at that point, then I will serve that purpose. But let's try to move past tokenism to some higher levels of diversity. So acknowledge that if that is the only tool that they have in their toolkit, let's work with it, but let's progress. Let's move forward.
Yes. 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 Call it out, right? And say, okay, we got to do better than this, right? Because I don't believe in tokenism. There's wait a minute. There's a current hit song that talks about only liking light-skinned women, and I was shocked that it was still okay to see that. Our knowledge makes us part of a minority. And I think that just speaks to that social programming, like we talked about before, right? And calling it out. Some of the pettiness comes from our own men, and the severe colorism with Black men because of European beauty standards. Again, that whole social programming. So much harm has been done to us by those who love us under the guise of protection. We are all damaged by damaged people to try to cope in this damaged world. The roots are white supremacy and slavery. As soon as a Black girl goes through puberty, she is overly sexualized. Some people are raised by same sex parents. People can have male role models who aren't their fathers. Lastly, some people choose to be single parents. Um, thank you for answering. Still working on this. Okay. Okay. So as we're winding down, right? I'm going to just call you off, right? So just think just briefly, what words of wisdom would you want to share to Black women who are watching this? And then also share what services or products you have to offer and how people can contact you. Okay. So I'll start with you, Dr. Anderson.
Well, thank you for just allowing me to be a part of this panel. I've really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it last week and enjoyed it this week, and I love y'all. As I said, behind the scenes, I just love us, and I think we're doing good work here, and people are going to walk away with plenty of nuggets and some work.
Yes.
So what I would tell Black women is, one, take your time, especially if you're in the process of healing. Grief and healing take time, and it's not a linear process. And so if you're thinking, okay, I'll be finished next week, that's probably not true. you know? And that's the second thing I would tell you, is to always tell yourself the truth. If you don't tell it to anybody else, you need to tell it to yourself. You have to be honest and true with yourself, especially if you are going on this healing journey. 3, you have to go after what you want, because if you don't, you'll never have it. And if you don't ask, the answer is always no. It's just, these are some things that, like, I think we've told ourselves that we can't have. And
Yeah.
those things are not true. So we need to change that narrative. Be kind and gentle with yourself also, because again, it's not a linear process. And even along the journey to healing, it doesn't mean that you won't be hurt. It
Mm,
just means that the journey might take a little longer. Um, Enjoy your life, and all that it entails. Like, take the time to rest, but also go out and do those things that you really enjoy, um, and really just realize that you are awesome and amazing, within yourself. Like, just know that you are awesome and amazing, and take that knowledge as you go about your day. And you can find me. You can find me on my website. It's www.drtoshia.com. Tasha is spelled Toshia. You can also find me at LinkedIn at Dr. Tasha as well. You can actually find me on my podcast. It's called Stemming and Stilettos. You'll get to meet a lot of minority women in STEM, and they'll tell you their story and give you good advice. So we are broadcast anywhere podcasts are available. If you want to talk to me, you can email me at my first name, Natasha, at drtasha.com. Thanks.
awesome. So I'll put everybody's information in the description section also for you to contact them. Thank you. Dr. Claire.
Hi. Thank you again for holding space for all of us to do this. I know it's well over time, but it's such a needed conversation. So I thank you, Dr. Kamani, and all of you for sharing your time and wisdom. What I would say is, when you realize that I am a reflection of you and you are a reflection of me, then we both have a commitment that we need to make to healing ourselves and loving ourselves enough to love each other. I would say, hey, Black girl, hey, Black woman, you are enough. You are valued. You are beautiful. And I love you. And I would say, Claire, I love you too, because we must remind ourselves that we are worthy of the love, even if we didn't get it from the world. We have a choice to make of if we choose to operate in love. And I do not believe we can love others if we don't first love ourselves. It's just not possible to do that. I am on LinkedIn, Dr. Claire Green-Forde, LCSW, working on the website piece. So we'll share that later, but you can certainly share the LinkedIn. Happy to connect and engage with people. But I just want us to know that we are worth the journey of healing. We are worth the journey of healing. You are worth the journey of healing, because the love and the light in you is unique to only you in this time. There will never be anyone created like you. There has never been anyone created like you. And you are purposed and designed for such a time as this. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Melanie.
So first of all, thank you again for this space. I know it's been repeated and echoed and bounced off all of these squares, but thank you again for allowing this space and this opportunity. Again, I am a proud member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. So happy Founders Month and happy Centennial to all my beautiful sorors. I would just first like to say what my commitment is to Black women and Black girls. And that is that my intention is to help. And if I cannot help you, I will not harm you. Also, just want to say that we are all connected. And this is my word of advice, my word of wisdom or encouragement, is that we are all connected just through sisterhood, through our experience. And I cannot be fully me until you can fully be you. And this is so, it it resonates with what Dr. Claire said. It's not my words. My best friend shares it with me all the time. But I cannot fully be me. I cannot live in my full truth and shine my full shine unless you can do it as well. And that being said, because I can't be me until you can fully be you, I want to ask you to extend the same grace and care and support to others that you would want to receive for yourself. So I know Kamani is going to put my contact information in YouTube or on the chat. So feel free to reach out to me, especially if you want a troublemaker, if you want somebody that's going to come in and disrupt the system, dismantle, tear everything apart, but then lovingly stand beside you to help you pull the pieces together. It is absolutely.
Yes.
So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Melanie. You all have said such beautiful things. I'm really touched right now. Stefany.
Wow. I mean, it's already so many powerful things. I feel like it should have been a mic drop after everyone already shared. But I equally just express my gratitude for this space. It's so therapeutic. And I don't think we realize how much we need spaces like this until we actually have it. Again, so many great things have been said, but one thing that I might re-emphasize is, give yourself permission to be defined more than just the pain you've suffered or the trauma you experience. Give yourself permission to be defined by joy and the things that make you feel whole and make you feel safe. I think we sometimes feel like it is a necessary burden to carry our pain and shepherd that forward and, share space to unpack it. But I also think that we have permission to be defined beyond that and share space to elevate all the joyful and divine things about being Black women. So that is what I'll leave us with. You could find me on LinkedIn, Stefany Tomlinson, and I am open to connecting with whomever, holding on to you, showering love. If you want to do the same for me while I'm in this doctoral program, please do. I will take all the kind messages and encouragement. And thank you again for allowing me to be in such a beautiful space.
Thank you, Stefany. Samantha.
Gratitude, Dr. Kamani, for creating this space, and gratitude to all the beautiful women that came and took time out of their schedule to join us on the panel, and for everyone that participated. A few things I wrote down that I would say to women: be good to and love yourself. Do your part to heal. Stay true to yourself. Learn, walk in, and serve in your purpose. And when you have an opportunity, be a part of the solution and not the problem.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
can be found at www.foundationscounseling LLC. I'm also on LinkedIn as Samantha Allen, LCSW. I'm on Instagram as Samantha_Allen_LCSW. Thank you again.
Nzingha.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like I was both learning and understanding and sharing. And so blessed you are, Dr. Kamani, for the ancestors choosing you to help find us. I'm just moved, so I'm going to try to take my time and go quick. The first thing I would say is choose you. This year, I chose me. I stepped away from a toxic environment to put myself forward. And so as I'm sharing, I'm also doing. So choose you. I want to share number 2, not coming from me, but my colleague and friend, Dr. Monique Morris, now Coovson, who wrote Push Out the Criminalization of Black Girls in Schools. And what she taught me was believe her. So once you choose you spiritually, physically, psychologically, emotionally, believe her. And that goes to yourself. Believe you. All the things that you've been through, you've been gaslighted about, believe that existed so that you can get through it. Something that came from Iyanla Vanzant when she was in the streets before she kind of did the other thing. She used to say, tell the truth about yourself to yourself, and no one can hold it against you. And that stuck with me for so many years, that when you can tell the truth about who you are, then that does not hang over your head as a fear. And the last thing that comes from me and my spirit and what I've learned this year is to invest in Black women who mirror your soul. Invest in Black women who mirror your soul. Because when you make that choice, it changes your circumstances, your environment, your spirit. And just by being here, I think you made that choice already. But make more of those choices and it will change your conditions.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Nzingha, I just wanted to say that was very powerful. All of you was so powerful. And I just want to share with all of you how full of gratitude I am for all of you, that, this literally was something that was delivered to me from God, right? And you talked about walking in your purpose and being obedient. I was obedient to what God was telling me to do. And I reached out to all of you, and all of you were receptive. So I feel that was divinely aligned, right? And it's so important for us to walk and pay attention and be obedient, right? And that this conversation, my hope is that this conversation sparks other conversations, because these issues keep us divided when we know the sisterhood is so powerful, so uplifting, and think of all the magnificent things that we already have done and that we can continue to do. So my hope is that Black women will listen to this. As Nzingha talked about, this year she left a toxic job. This year I left a toxic job, right? And this is what really propelled this whole channel, right? Was that I knew I had to leave a toxic job, but I was scared to do it, right? You all talked about grief, right? I had grief associated with the job, and many of us have grief about other things, right? And so part of my healing journey was to talk about it. And the more I talked about it, the better, the easier it was for me. But I also felt that if I'm talking about this, more Black women reached out to me and said, keep talking about it, girl. Keep talking about it. I'm going through it too. Keep talking about it. But by me healing myself, I was healing other Black women. And that is my mission. That's why I became a psychologist. And so it is so affirming to see all this coming together. And so my hope is that if you are a Black woman, right? So many of us here on this panel have left toxic jobs, right? And the reasons are wide ranging, right? We're across professions. But my hope is that if you are a Black woman and you are in a toxic job and you are not being affirmed, please start making your plan to leave, right? Please make your exit plan, because these jobs can kill you. Okay. And I'm being very straightforward. Okay. It can kill us physically, spiritually, mentally. I'll also mention that I love to help Black women leave toxic jobs, right? I love it, right? So I'm going to do a free training. And so I just want, if you have some input on what you would like to see in a free training, I'm going to have a link in the description section. Please click that. It's a short survey, and you're entered to win into a $25 Amazon gift card, okay? So keep an eye out for that. And I also want to ask all Black women who are watching this to please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications, so that more conversations, you will be aware of these conversations. Because again, as things are being downloaded to me, I'm going to present it to us. So help to promote our healing, okay? So to everyone, I want to say thank you again for tuning in. My panelists, if you could just stay on for a few minutes, okay? So everyone, please take good care. Please know your worth. Please stand in your worth. Please shine your light. And please uplift other Black women, okay? And get the healing if the healing is needed. And I think we all need healing, okay? So good night to everyone. Again, thank you for tuning in. So let me cut this off here.